we have to have a plan. We have to know what does that look like and who needs to be targeted.
Create something consistent. We're going to be in this market for the next few years.
Maybe rate is what the leading trigger, but it's also we have to do our part to make people feel warm and fuzzy inside.
We have to show the client that we are valuable and it's not all about the price.
In a hard market, which now we're just calling the market, we know that keeping clients on the books is harder than ever. We have the second form of renewals that are coming through at higher than anticipated for the client, dollar amount. We have underwriting guidelines and restrictions. We have all sorts of things coming down the pike. We have new endorsements that sometimes make us uncomfortable that we wouldn't necessarily recommend, like maybe a percentage deductible versus a flat fee. As we look at renewals, we want to have a lively discussion today with the wonderful Therese Potter, Bobby Fernandez, and Stephen Harrington Picoto. And you take a breath after saying Stephen's name. So many words.
I'm breathless.
So many syllables. How are we going to handle renewals going into year 2, right? This is a question that we get a lot. Like, hey, your year 1 strategies worked good. What are we doing in year 2? Because I think we got by year 1, but we have to probably be a little different here in year 2 when the clients heard the same thing a second time. At some point in time, if we haven't put in a lot of deposits in that client piggy bank, they don't necessarily trust us. Or we sold some new business last year and now they're taking their first rate increase with us. And they're like, looks like it's the same thing all over again. So let's start by talking a little bit about, how do we think agencies should start a renewal process, right? Like we're at ground zero. We know renewals are coming in. What kind of things do you think the best agencies are doing to get ahead of those renewals?
I think they're having to have a plan. Can we just start with a plan? Like, what do we need to do? But it's reaching out to the customers, or at least our top tier customers, and rekindling the relationship that started after the sales process. Right? A lot of times agencies close a new account, we sell them something, it's shiny, it's golden, and we feel all this love. And then we move on and never talk to them again unless they call us and need something. So it's just kind of keeping at the top of mind and reaching out proactively and talking to the client about the value of us as an agent, or what makes their policy so special, or identifying kind of what their updated needs are so that we can tailor the policy to the client. So we have to have a plan. We have to know what does that look like and who needs to be targeted.
Well, and I also think, this has come up a couple of times with some clients that I've been working with on the market stuff, and, being able to control the narrative and the education that is in front of our clients, because they can be hearing a lot of competing things from different places. And so, getting agency principals to do educational blogs and have videos for their clients on a regular basis, and not just at a renewal time or not just at new business time, but create something consistent. We're going to be in this market for the next few years. And so this is the state of our industry. And so we need to be controlling that narrative that is out there in front of our clients on a regular basis, not just at renewal or new business.
And I think it's time that we stop keeping our heads down and just hoping everything renews and nothing's going to happen and it's all just going to renew. I think we need to, be proactive, calling our clients, having a plan to review the policies, make sure that we're not giving our customers the insurance words of remarketing and rewriting and requoting. Those 3 words should never come out of a client's mouth. They shouldn't even know those words. We should be reviewing their policies. Let's review for discounts. And we as insurance agents need to know the features and the discounts of every single carrier we write with. And if you don't, that's your agency's homework. Everybody in the agency pick a carrier and write down the features and the discounts that carrier has. So we know those features and those discounts. So when we're talking to clients, we can review them. And instead of talking to ourselves, I don't want telematics because I don't like it. That does not mean that your client doesn't want it and can't get a discount from it. So you need to look at all the discounts that the carrier offers, and you need to go through them one by one and let your client decide whether they want them or not. because I think we miss the buck when the sale happens by not offering some of those things because we don't like them. And that may have been a producer, not you, and then the service agent gets it and you review it and you see that they don't have it. That's your opportunity to say, hey, we have this discount for telematics, or we have this discount for, good grades. Do you have, a child that has good grades, or, just talking through the discounts and the features that the carriers have, and reminding the customers that there are other options and other solutions rather than just getting another policy or rewriting it or going to another carrier.
Well, I think to Teresa's point, it's not your policy, it's their policy. So if they're willing to take a higher deductible like that you wouldn't take, that's not your choice, right? Like, I mean, it might be fine taking a $10,000 deductible, right? Like, okay, cool. I'm not going to claim if it's under 10. Do that, and I'm good. Some people might be fine with percentage deductible. Some of it might be fine with, going ahead and getting telematics. It's not your policy. Your job is to educate it. It's like working at an ice cream place and saying, listen, my favorite is mint Oreo. And so that's the only one that you should get. I'm not going to talk to you about any of the other flavors. Doesn't matter that you're like a chocolate fiend or you like, sorbets. It's not, and it's like, I think sometimes it's either we're not comfortable explaining those things, so we try not to, or we have a little PTSD, which I think is more rampant in this industry than we like to talk about. Well, I had one person who was on telematics and they couldn't get us set up, and then they bit my head off because they got to, like XYZ happened, and they're just like, that was one out of hundreds. So don't worry about the one. Go forward and say, let's talk about it. Let's get this squared away, And I think also on renewal, it's very important to me that the clients in this year go around. We really look at each person like a person, not a policy, because if we just, the first year the talk track worked, that you could say 25 times a day, the same thing. But if you don't stop and look at Bobby Fernandez or Stephen Harrington Dakota or Therese Potter and say, okay, talk to me, what's important to you, and let's figure this out together. If you just blanketly script them and like, oh, we're in a hard market, they're going to be like, yeah, I heard that last year. You're not listening to me. So you are going to have to listen to your customers. And this is what Stephen's point of hearing, saying like, especially top tier, maybe don't listen as much to the bottom one. Maybe they can make a decision if they're there or not there and, in due time. But I do think you actually have to listen. But Bobby said something in a previous podcast, you have to listen, but you also can't be like a sponge and take that all in and say, I must fix all of your financial insurance problems. Right? Like you have to be a little bit more like there's got to be a crispy candy shell outside of you. Like, hey, I understand, like you don't want to spend as much money on insurance, and talk through what happens if you don't have the coverage. Are you cool cleaning up your own sewage in your basement? Because I'm not.
And
Thank you.
I also think we have to understand, and to your point a little earlier, and also Therese mentioned this a little bit too, but it made me think about the fact that I have to still review the account each year. And just because they said no to something last year doesn't mean that this year that doesn't change. So just because we did a review last year and they didn't want that discount, it's okay to ask. And we should be asking again every single year. And I always use the example of when I was doing social service and nonprofit, I had a client who she would always decline rental car reimbursement. Always. And they transported patients back and forth to doctor's appointments. And every year I would try and convince her, this is going to be a problem. If your van goes down, you got a problem here. And she would fight me on it every single year until I finally convinced her. And then what happens? She has a claim and is very grateful that I pushed her, but sometimes it takes that nurturing. It takes that nurturing of that client and really being able to tell them the right story. So to Kelly's point, I need now to delve in and spend that time getting to know you. You've already heard my scripts. If I've been proactive and I've given you the education the previous year, this year at renewal, now we should have time that I don't have to do all of that hard work. Now my hard work is really getting to understand your account. How can we make this impactful and really showing my value?
Yeah. And I also will say that we are going to lose customers in this market. It's going to happen. It doesn't mean that they don't come back. Right? It doesn't mean that people might not make a bad decision and say, hey, you know what? I thought it was grass is greener. It's not. The other thing I think is also very, very, very critical as you guys are, going through these second renewal cycles. I'm excited for our upcoming podcast on this very much so, because I think it's also a matter of we cannot just blame rate for everything. Oh, that's because the rate went up. Like, that's what I hear all the time. And then I look at the account and I'm like, well, we emailed them their renewal. Like, that wasn't rate. Like, we really weren't there for them. Or we told them we'd reshop their account. We got them like a week later, and we emailed them that. Like, I think we also have to really stop and just say, and this is why those client tiers are so important, is focus on the top 2/3 of the book, not the bottom third. And that means that you have to do what you say you're going to do. Because if my rate's gone up twice, like Bobby told me she's going to call me back Thursday and she called me back Tuesday, that still leaves a little mark in my head. Right. And then I don't think we always catch ourselves on the service side, some of the stuff that comes out of our mouth of like, hey, well, hey, Bobby, I know I was going to call you Thursday. It just got so busy here. We were a little short staffed. Like, does a client want to hear that?
My system was down, or
My computer's so slow.
We were short staffed, and basically what you're saying is the ownership doesn't care about the people dying, or a client, or you weren't a priority. That you couldn't even call and say, hey, I'm still working on this. Like, we have to be super careful. Our clients are not our friends. We're here to do a professional role. We can be friendly with them, but the client should not be caught up in the agency's dysfunction, right? If somebody called out sick and was sick for 2 days and you were backlogged, the client should not have any perception of that. Because when they think about going to shop their policy at State Farm, well, State Farm is this mega company. I wouldn't have to deal with that, right? They don't know the difference at the end of the day. But I just really encourage us all to not blame rate for every client deflection. Maybe rate is what the leading trigger, but it's also we have to do our part to make people feel warm and fuzzy inside.
Well, and your clients don't want to hear it, Kelly. Like, not to be mean, but I mean, I've had clients in the past tell me, like, I did that, Bobby, but I got a business to run. So especially in commercial lines, right? Or, I mean, in personal lines, you have your family to run and manage. Who's to say that our client isn't sick? So the last thing they want to hear is excuses.
Well, and we underestimate sometimes our value as insurance agents. We have a license. We had to take a test. We have to value that, and we have to show the client that we are valuable, and it's not all about the price.
Definitely. So our biggest key takeaways on renewal and getting your renewal strategy is make sure your team is genuine. Make sure you're tiering clients so people know where to focus their time on and who to let go of, because you won't be able to save everyone. And I think really just talking to the client, saying, okay, what's going on? Where are we at? Yes, it's difficult. My insurance policy also went up. Let's get through what some options are that we have. And sometimes we tell people, well, I could take off water sewer backup. Are you willing to clean up your own sewage in your basement? People are like, no. So for $70, you want to keep that? Yeah. Okay. Sometimes people work their way back up on the policy. Yeah, because they don't want to do some of those. Well, everybody, thanks so much for joining us today on how to approach renewals in a hard market. Definitely check out our hard market training. We have whole training where we can work with your team directly or via our agency pool so that you guys can get this kind of stuff going into your team's head. And the nice thing is the more they hear it, the more they start realizing that the decisions that they make at that desk level every day do impact the outcomes of your agency. So, thank you, everybody.